I'm Dale Brisby, and today on the Rodeo Time podcast, we've got Tim Washington. He has been at the historic Matador Ranch here in Texas for 36 years. We're joined by a mutual good friend of ours, Mr. Kai Fuston. We're going to talk to these two cowboys about what it was like in the old days and some stories of theirs ranching together and just the cowboy way of life. He's got some intense stories, and you're not going to want to miss a minute of it. And as you're listening, feel free to go to rodeotime.com because right now every purchase of a cap, t-shirt, hoodie, or all three will enter you in a drawing to win my 2023 Can-Am Defender. This thing is 4-door AC, 4-wheel drive, JL audio, Bluetooth speakers. So go grab something on rodeotime.com from now to the end of the year, and that will enter you to win that Can-Am potentially. So thank you to our sponsors, American Hat and Ranch Fuel, for bringing you this episode of Rodeo Time. Let's hear from Tim and Kai. Welcome, Mr. Tim Washington, Kai Fuston, to the Rodeo Time Warehouse. We are doing, I think it's episode maybe 172, and great to have you, gentlemen. Rodeo or ranching cowboys. I like to have people I'm interested in on the podcast, but it is called Rodeo Time, so rodeo cowboys and occasionally military, sometimes musicians, but I try to have ranching cowboys too, just to tell the story. So I had a friend tell me, well, anyways, I'll tell you that later, but I want to kick it off real quick. I've got a few questions from the audience for Kai. Describe Australian food.
Probably lots of kangaroos.
Did you go to Australia? I don't know why that one's from.
No, yeah. Never ate Australian food.
Did getting knocked out in Vegas give you any special abilities?
No.
Did you get knocked out in Vegas?
Never did. No, well, nearly, yes, once, but I didn't get knocked out.
Oh, on a bucking horse?
No, it was actually on the side of a casino. Some crackhead ran up and punched me.
No kidding?
Yeah, I don't know how somebody would know that, but yes, it actually did.
Maybe the crackhead.
It was probably him, but I didn't have any special powers, no.
Maybe these aren't for you because the next question is, are you worried about getting deported?
It's probably, they're thinking about probably the bull rider, Kai Hamilton, probably. Reckon? He is from Australia, right?
Oh my gosh. That's what it's from. Yep. Because the next one after, are you worried about getting deported, is the accent real?
Oh, yeah. Not Kai Hamilton.
Wrong Kai.
Wish I was, but no.
Yeah, maybe I should have been more specific rather than just putting it on my story. I got questions for Kai. What was the last one? What do you think of Stetson Wright and why doesn't he like you? You know, I wrote all these down thinking, man, yeah, these are interesting questions, but you know, I have thought that you and Kai Hamilton need to meet.
I would like to meet him.
Yeah.
For sure.
You guys would get along.
Yeah.
You're both about the same height.
Seems
you're
like
both
a really cool dude.
Yeah. Well, sorry about the mix-up. Completely different guy. You were wondering who asked that whenever I said the Vegas thing.
Well, yeah, I was like, man, I don't know anybody that would have known that, but the Australian food coming threw me off though.
You were just are y'all hot? I'm hot. Can you turn the AC on? You were really thrown for a loop whenever I asked that one. So, Tim, you and I have gotten to work cows a couple times together, and it's been fun. Kai here, you guys have worked together for years, and essentially, I would just love to hear your story as it pertains to cowboying, and just the whole thing from the beginning. How you got started, and what it is that made you commit to the cowboy lifestyle.
Oh goodness. That's a long story. So
yeah.
I don't know where to start other than when I was a kid. My dad he was a farmer rancher, and he always had me a Shetland or horse, whatever, always. We had some people that worked for us or worked for him, and that gentleman saddled me a horse first thing every morning when I was, when I could start riding.
And where'd you live?
Flormont, Texas. I actually had moved there in '69, but basically that's home. And anyway, I always had that love in the old westerns, the old rabbit ear TV and putting a foil on them, and westerns about all there was. And weekends, that's what we watched, and it was my love. And so I started. I've done various things, but then I started day working some as I got old enough. Married young, and had a family, so. Day worked just everywhere, anywhere and everywhere. I believe $40 a day when I started day working.
So that would have been in the 70s?
Early 70s, yeah. 69, 70, right in there.
Where were you day working?
I helped several ranches, nothing great big really, other than I helped the Cogdals, and there's various ranches around Kittiquay and up on the Paladura that Birdville Ranch, Dinner Creek, Cherokee, there's all just up there.
Is it the same Birdville that's got that sign on the side of the road and you drive by going through there?
No, sir, would be around west of Kittiquay.
Gotcha.
I think you're thinking about maybe Bridwell. Okay.
Is it Bridwell?
Yeah, like by Crosbyton?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I think it's Bridwell.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And just close. Never went south. Flomont's north of Matador till 88, and went to the Matadors, and they were a little dubious about us because they'd heard we kind of maybe on the wilder side of the deal, but we finally talked them into letting us help them, and they ran 2 crews then on the Matadors.
Who was we?
I had a friend I went to school with, Bruce McFall. He and I kind of traveled together, and several other boys around Silverton that day worked, and that's what we did for a living.
This was in 88 when you went there?
That's the first time I got to help at the Matador Ranch, yes.
What was day working like right around how different was it from what Kai and I have experienced?
Well, I guess various things, just modern technology's taken over, there's then we pull, hardly anybody pulled a wagon out when I started, and even the Matadors had quit pulling the wagon out at that time. And I think the love of that some of the younger boys, y'all's generation and all, is brought back into it. I think that's a neat deal.
Yes, sir.
I still like to go home and go to my bed, so it didn't bother me. But
you're just glad somebody's doing it.
Yeah. It's neat. Fortunately, Kai got me into where we've helped together, and I really enjoyed going stand on the wagon a night or two, and then I was ready to go home.
Yeah.
But it's just technology changed. We'd pull, and we had to feed our own horses, and you didn't leave your horse or nothing. You took him home and got you a different one.
Yes, sir.
So, but I think that's more of the places that I helped than we helped a lot of individual ranchers, small ranchers back then. Where now it's more ranchers have more land, I think, and so
really?
It's bigger, and you're there longer, so they put you up. But back in then, they didn't put you up.
So what did it look like when you started work in 1988 at the Matador? You said your friend's name was Bruce?
Yes, sir. We helped them in the spring that year, and they ran 2 crews. I don't know, there was 140,000 acres, and they ran 2 crews, 9-man crews, and we got to go on a gentleman that had part of the country that was not just a cowboy, he was a cowman. I learned a lot from him. He fortunate enough to go to his crew every time, and they'd merge on the big pastures, the 10,000 acres and stuff. But they just you carried your own lunch there.
Really?
Yeah, you carried you a sandwich or didn't eat till you got home. So,
dang.
Yeah.
What'd you normally do?
I carry a can of Viennese.
Carry a can of beans?
Yeah, Viennese, yes, sir.
Oh,
Pork and
Viennese
beans,
sausages.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Dang.
Yeah.
That would be rough. That's like what I look forward to the most, to be honest, is some of the food we get to eat.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And it all changed, but there was 9 campmen on that 140,000 acres when I started, and then we went down to 4.
Wow.
So on the same acres.
What so the transition from when you were working at these ranches, had they really already stopped pulling out wagons, or was it they were starting to stop?
I think they had basically, I can't speak for the big outfits because until I went to the Matadors, nobody pulled a wagon out, and I think the bigger places might still have been, but I never got to go to, or never tried to go to those. Everywhere I went did not. So I think they'd stopped basically pulling them out.
Were there the same numbers of potential day workers around back then? Was it a lot of guys looking to get hired on at different places and a lot of people wanting to day work?
Yes,
like
sir.
It is now?
Yes, sir. There was lots of turnover back in the day. A guy. Well, I've been at the Matadors 36 years, and I've seen them come and go, and I've seen boys stay as long as 2 or 3 years, and I've seen boys leave in a week. But I mean, we're talking low pay, and So I guess it's just that with rotational grazing and all that, it's cut out. But I feel like y'all still think there's plenty of day workers? Feels like they're getting shorter to me.
I feel like there's. I think that there may not be as many qualified day workers. That there's very few Kai Fustons. 100%. I do think there's a lot of people that would like to do it, but as far as qualified, I think you're right. That's probably a better way to put that. I think that it seems like the cowboy way of life right now is very popular.
I'd agree with that.
I agree.
I think, yes, thanks to Yellowstone, but also the internet. There's a lot of people out there that really just weren't familiar with it. They just didn't realize, that Chris Ledoux song, I can't remember which one it was, but he says, you just can't see them from the road. Well, now with the internet and TV and, streaming and Yellowstone and Snapchat, you can see us from the road. And I've been encouraged, and I feel that our industry has got a lot of interest right now. And, but maybe back then there weren't that many people. That maybe that's when what he meant by that song. They really didn't, unless they watched a Western occasionally. They didn't realize that job existed. But that's just what I assumed. That's what made me ask that question.
Yeah.
So you got hired on that first year in '88. You were day working though.
Yes, I day worked, and I was calving heifers for them. We'd calve around 1,200, and I was really making the money because I was going 24 hours, so I was getting $80 every 24 hours, so doubling up. And I was living down there in the barn. I just stayed there every 2 hours. At night, even I'd go out and ride through the heifers. We'd keep our heavies up. And anyway, I guess where I'm going with this story is, well, my wife and our son was born, and she was in a little old car up there trying to cut wood on a house that we lived in. That wood was our only heat, and this was in the winter. So she told me that something had changed, and it just so happened the next week, well, they got me in the barn there, and they asked me if I'd take a job.
A camp job.
A camp job. So it probably saved my marriage and that too. So,
man, just a week away. That's funny.
So anyway, I took the full-time job.
Did you think at that time that you might be there for 36 years?
No, sir. Not
really.
I wouldn't have thought that I would last. I just know. Kind of hard-headed.
You mean you think you might have wanted to go somewhere else, or maybe are you trying to say you didn't think you were good enough?
Well, there's a story behind that in itself, but no, I just felt like that, there was too many people and too many chiefs running around, and I thought there's, I'll try it. So the camp they put me on was pretty well a workhouse, and
what camp was this?
Russellville camp. It was east of Roaring Springs.
Russellville.
Yes,
I don't know I don't know anything about
That's
Matador.
up right against Tongue River, like right beside Tongue River.
Tongue River was our east neighbor.
So, go ahead.
Russellville was a railroad loading pens is where it got the name for load railroads, cars.
So what year was this that you got offered that job?
90.
Oh, you day worked there for 2 full years.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
We'd ran for 5 months and take off a couple, and then we'd wing for 5. So basically, I was full-time day worker, I guess you'd say. But anyway.
So where was she living that she was cutting her own? What did y'all have, like a rent house or?
No, we had our own little house, little 2-bedroom house.
You were that serious of a day worker, they put you up in a. Oh, you had your own house.
Yes, when I was day working, but now when I went full-time, they moved me to a camp. Yes.
Gotcha. So did you sell your house?
Yes, sir. Sold the place.
I was just thinking you were talking about it with being your only heat and all. It might be neat to. Yeah, I'm sure you probably drive by it or see it.
Yeah, it's burnt now.
Did it really?
Yes, sir.
Dadgummit.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So then you go to a camp job, and she didn't have to cut wood anymore for heat?
No, they furnished her utilities, so she was a happy lady.
So for our listeners out there, some people, so I can explain to you guys, a ranch will, a bigger ranch like the Matadors, 140,000, they've got full-time work, hands that will live on the ranch all year round. And the ranch is so big that not everybody would primarily live at headquarters and have to drive a long ways, which, used to. They would have to ride their horse that far every day to tend their country. So it wouldn't be all the too bad these days with driving a pickup, but regardless, it's still a long drive every day. So they've got these camps scattered out on the ranch, and the full-time help, the what might be called a camp man, and he's in charge of that area, and that's where you were in Russellville camp. But then there's times a year where it gets really busy, and they'll hire day workers.
Correct.
But there's always seems to be a couple of guys that just good enough help, and you have enough going on the ranch. Essentially, they're a full-time day worker. But I say all that to explain to the audience, because I'd like to ask you just how big of a change and what it was like for you going from essentially a day worker to a camp man.
Well, it was quite a change for one thing, but I was kind of always one of those guys that I could do more for you than I could for myself as far as work. I was more in tune and more concerned about the health and the flesh and everything of the cattle and the horses. And we got a horse program started back, and that was my passion.
Really?
Was the horses. And so I guess it was just from more of a, well, let me put it this way. So when I day worked, I always had $1. I never had two. Mm. So once I took this full-time job, well, then we had the opportunity to save some money. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's the biggest change and best thing out of the whole deal was that.
Which it's funny because, on paper, day workers can sometimes, seems like, make more money on paper, but they're 1099, so you're contract labor and you're having to pay for all your own. You had to pay for your own house and your own horse, and like you said, sometimes you got your own feed and a vet bill, but then when you come a camp man, you might make less, but then you spend nothing.
Correct. And
nowadays it's you actually, you get your cell phone is about all that a guy has to pay for, but back then there weren't cell phones, so
yeah,
you didn't even have to pay for that.
Yeah.
You get beef, and so that must have been, you just didn't have to worry about that anymore.
That's right. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen it way back in the day because, I'm not good with the history of the ranch, but it was 1.5 million acres at one time.
Good heavens.
So it's hard to fathom that. They had line riders. There was no fences, and I would have loved to have seen that. But boy, them guys had to be tough.
I imagine.
They had to be tough.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's what Kai and I think about your generation as well. Just kind of thinking about
a lot tougher than I am.
Your wife is cutting firewood
yeah,
for warmth, That's that in and of itself. I'm just so curious about, today there's so much information. We all have access to just something can happen in Russia or overseas, whatever, and 90 seconds later we would know about it. But in the late 80s and early 90s, you could be out at Russellville camp and you may never know that something happened. What was it like transitioning from, I assume it just allows you to just focus on your job.
Exactly. I'll be honest, it's a lot simpler, a lot less stressful. You just, you had a job, you did it. You didn't worry about the outside world. Mm-hmm. We were party lines, and then all of a sudden they come out with bag phones, and here we go. Somebody's calling you all the time, and of course today, it's like you're saying, you can send a picture or video, or you can Google something and figure it out. And
right.
You nearly work on your own rig, Mm-hmm. So I guess that's the biggest thing is just technology is so overwhelming to me. And then it's just simple, had my family. Russellville was enough of a workhouse that nobody wanted to come out there. They didn't want to come with, they're like, oh gosh, you have to work, you go out there. But that's all I knew, all I do know, I'm simple.
Were they were all Hereford cattle back then?
When I first got there, the Russellville camp itself had the last full-blood Hereford herd there. Mm. That was pretty amazing too. They when I got there, my first thing was, I load me a horse in my trailer and I go way over here to this pasture where these Hereford cows are, and gonna feed. It was feed season, and I fire up the siren, and every cow I see's leaving, and I'm like, what's going on? Well, finally got them to, I didn't take a trailer and a horse. Well, they'd come right to me, So anyway, I finally got them where I could take a trailer, feed them. I could take a horse and feed them. But first time you unloaded that horse, they were gone again. So anyway, I guess I'm trying to tell you funny about them old Hereford cows. We'd go to gather them, and a lot of our country was clear then. The mesquites were.
Oh, they hadn't really taken over.
Well, they had cleared that country. You could see across most of it at the time. You sure can't now, but you'd go together them old cows, and man, here in a minute you'd look over there and there'd be a grown cow, laying on right there in the open where you could see her with her head down like a calf does. You know how a calf hides? That old cow would be doing the same thing.
Dang.
Them old Hereford cows, it was crazy.
Sneaky.
Yeah. But then they went to a cross. They went to Hereford, Angus, and Brangus, three-way cross.
Did you like that? Were you a fan of that?
I was okay with it, yeah. It's all right. Yeah.
Was there anything you miss about them being just full-blood Herefords?
Not having a doctor cancer, I didn't miss that at all.
You're over that.
Yeah. No, I miss them. Today, the people that bought the section I work for, they still have a full-blood herd. It's small, but they're incorporating it back in some.
I just, hear some guys complain about how slow Angus cattle are, but was that something that you guys respected about the Herefords back then? Just that they'd help you get to the pens faster?
Oh, yeah. You bet. They were challenging. I loved it back then. Now I like simple, but then the challenge was good.
Were there more Mavericks, though, that you had to deal with?
Yes, sir, probably so, yes. Yeah. Same way as today, with the feed pickups, you feed something up. That's probably where Kai and I together had a lot of our fun with the other boys was, go back and get a Maverick and, call them up there, sit there and BS, and then unload when they get there and have at it.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world to have a few Mavericks.
That's right.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact story, but who was it that said they wanted to play God for one day and pick up every tree? I think back when they had that spade stuff leased, he said pick up every tree and watch these red silly things run themselves to death.
Yeah.
Trying to find a spot to hide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember but I laughed about that, thinking about them Herefords running and hiding, like him talking about them hiding and like just one little rock or a bush and bunkering down, But.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about how well they can get hid right behind so by the time, fast forward, what was the first time you went out there, Kai?
Started helping them off and on when I went to work for Jeff and Rod in 2000. It was 2009. I helped them like the fall of 2009, and then day working, 9 and 10. Yes, sir. But didn't go to work for them full time until 2016. Yes, sir.
So how different was the country once Kai got there?
Well, the mesquites and all had grown back. The owners at that time had quit their brush program. So the mesquites,
What made them quit it?
I guess just the cost,
Budget?
Yeah. Just it didn't fit their budget, and they may have lost some interest in the ranch. So.
What so how different did day-to-day operations look in 2016 compared to 1990? Man, it seems like a lifetime.
It is.
For a ranch like that.
It is.
Him saying he went to work there, or day working in 88.
88.
That was when I was born.
Yep.
Like 36,
Right.
It's my whole lifetime, so
Yeah.
long time.
As far as like was it still 2 9-man crews?
No, sir. We had they had went from 9 campmen down to 4, and that happened probably because of rotational grazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I never have sat and thought about how many pastures there were on that thing to start with, and then in 2016, well, I mean, you would brand 200, 250, 300 head of calves or work that many cows in one group, whereas before you might have to go gather 50 cows and work them. So that's why it took so long. You had to go however many pastures, that's how many days you went.
Right.
And some of the bigger ones, well, you'd have to go more than one day. But with rotational grazing, I think is the biggest change in bigger groups.
So tell me what that looked like now after, instead of just every pasture has X amount of head in it, you've got how many moving?
Well, it just depends on the system you have them in, which would be the acres, how they're broke down. They experimented on me at Russellville one time. You've probably heard of Stan Parsons, those, what do they call them, maybe holistic system guys. So they electric fenced Russellville one time.
Wow.
Pastures anywhere from, or they call them paddocks, but anywhere from 15 acres to 2,500 acres. So it's moving cattle constantly with that. But with the invasive, the mosquitoes and all that, well, that fence didn't last very long. Mm-hmm. So anyways, we went to more of a traditional. So depending on the size of the pastures, so I might have 4 or 5 none less than 3 pastures that I can rotate in, that we can rotate in, and it just depends on those acres. We try to run a cow to 30, 32 in dry years, but they were pretty well maxed out then at cow to 27. That's
really
plenty stout. But
when I was growing up, my dad managed a little bitty ranch, but we ran like 150 cows for this guy, but we rotated. Gosh dang, I feel like we were out there every week, every 10 days.
Yeah.
We would have to rotate pastures, and for the longest, I just thought that's what everybody did all the time.
Yeah.
And you're just constantly, moving and bumping, depending on the pasture. Some of them obviously a little more brush or less brush and more canyons, whatever. But I kind of just thought that was the thing. Yeah. But some of these, I mean, I don't feel like very many people do that as much. That dang sure not as many as I thought.
Yeah. It was crazy what the people I worked for when I started, they they didn't ease into anything. It was whole hog or none. I mean, I had pastures. I had 1,290 mama cows in one group.
Wow.
Yeah, and some of those 15-acre deals, I'd have to move them in half a day.
Right.
Kick them in there and then go get them after lunch and move them,
Dang.
And there's just no way to manage it with, like in the cake season, I mean, I couldn't haul enough cake. And the poorer cows, they just keep getting poorer, but you could annihilate an area. If you caked in a spiral, you could clean it up.
Some of the traps would be that small?
15 acres.
Wow. I've heard of.
I remember because some of that stuff never got picked up. And
right.
Like over there,
You mean like the fencing materials?
Yeah, it's just that they just had them on fiberglass posts in the ground with wire in them. But I can't imagine fencing some of that stuff off. And a lot of it didn't get picked up because they just kind of quit it. But,
so did a fencing crew kind of have to follow them? Or did you have to do that?
It was pretty well me.
That was you. I guess I'm imagining.
A crew built the fence.
Uh-huh.
But then I had to maintain it.
Dang. I've heard of, when I was in college, I heard of a East Texas, there was an outfit that a different class would go visit, and he had it kind of pie shaped, but it was, it was East Texas. It was, 5 acres to the animal unit rather than 32 or something like that. And so he had a small place. It was one older gentleman, and he would rotate these almost daily, I feel like you're talking about, if not daily, every other day or something like that. And he was able to do it, but they also get a lot more rain, and it's just very different grass. Yeah, that's crazy.
It was.
Was there a time in there where you kind of felt like this isn't necessarily what I signed up for?
Every day. Yes, sir, every day. Yeah. It was a workout, but
kind of want to throw your sucker in the dirt.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something else he hadn't talked about is the pipeline, water line he had used to deal with.
What do you mean? What was that?
It run from basically nearly Roaring Springs all the way to dang near to Dumont.
Really?
69 miles pipeline.
What involvement did you have with it?
I had to
everything.
Keep them cattle watered.
Yeah.
The problem with it is everything east of 70 there is a lot of sulfur, a lot of gyp, we call it. It's pretty bad gyp. So anytime that air got to the line, well, then gyp formed in this poly pipe. Well, then over the years, it went to stopping up. The gyp would turn loose and go to a certain area and then stop. Yeah, it was.
That's not the same. There was that much of it in there.
Yes, sir.
That's not the same stuff that they deal with in Guthrie, is it? It is, yes, and that's what. So but y'all didn't do the RO, reverse osmosis?
No, sir.
See, I'd always thought that if you kind of grew up around it, you could get used to it, and I thought maybe cows were that way.
They'd drink it, but the problem was that the line would stop up, and once the line stopped up, you'd have to go dig that up, cut the line, and then jet it back to, like, you'd have to cut up 100 yards of it and jet it back. Like, once you drill a hole in the pipe, and if you had water there, then cut the line, go down the line, jet like this. It's a jetter, and it'd go knock that stuff out, and then you'd weld it back together, turn your water back on, and then go another 100 yards. But he's saying 69 miles of that over the course of however many years of it, just that sediment just growing and growing and growing until it completely compacted the line. And them cows are solely, that's their source of water. There's not much tank water, it's just that.
How have they rectified that problem since then?
They sold it. They sold that.
They sold the ranch.
Yeah. Well, they sold that part, but I think the people that bought it have went in and laid new lines.
Because there's just no water underneath if you drill a
They've
well.
drilled, I think the people that have bought it now drilled 40, 50 so wells, got a couple of 2-3 gallon a minute wells. There's no underground water there.
Wow.
And they're claiming there's water on down about 400 feet, but it's there's so much sulfur in it that it'll kill cattle.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, you got to have water, I guess.
Yes,
that's just part of it.
When I had that 1,290 head that time, I had there was a couple of oil wells they tried to develop down there in part right next to Tongue River, and everything had went out and dry. It got real dry, and I couldn't tell you exactly 92 or 3. That's probably not right, but anyway, they'd haul salt water out. Well, we had like 6-7 trucks. Of those trucks would bring fresh water in, and pour in our tubs.
Oh, because they were coming in there anyway, so they would backhaul it. That's good.
But we had to haul water to 1,290 head of cows for about a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was just that dry.
Well, you can imagine those cattle standing around that water waiting their turn to drink.
That's so sad.
Yes, sir.
Did y'all have to do that same thing? When was it that it was that bad? Was it 11?
2011, we had a bad drought. We didn't have to haul water then, but yes, everything.
You just had to haul water because your line was messed up.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
This was
right.
Yeah. No, in 11 we didn't have to haul water, but we did destock. Mm-hmm. We had to destock. We were fortunate enough to have destocked in a timely manner, so we didn't have to sell all our cows or go lease something. So,
You bet.
of course, then you know what happened in 13 when we went to buying cows back.
Yeah. Yeah. Then you get in over your head pretty
Yes,
easy.
sir. Yeah. I don't know if some of them cows ever paid for themselves.
Yeah. I had a couple of those myself. When I say a couple, literally like 2 or 3. Dang. Did you guys ranch rodeo?
We got to just 2 or 3 years. Coke that owned the ranch at the time, they were huge on safety. It's a big corporate deal, and they wouldn't sponsor us. So me and some of the boys just kind of on our own went to the non-sanctioned, couple of
Gotcha.
non-sanctioned roads.
You
just
didn't get
for
to go to-
fun.
You didn't get to go to the big WRCA stuff
no,
or
sir.
whatever it was called back then. It wasn't called WRCA back then, was it?
Kind of question.
Great cowboy stories. Thank you for listening in. A quick thank you to my sponsors, Rock and Roll Denim. Hey, these Reflex, they're what you need to ranch in. Vintage, kind of an old school look. So go to rockandrolldenim.com. Like to thank Mountain Ops Supplements for the protein, Total Feeds for powering Boone, and the whole Remuda here at Radiator Ranch. I'd also like to thank Can-Am Side-by-Sides. Now, let's get back to Tim and Kai.
I don't know. I think I can't remember. Yes, sir.
I know I asked you a long time ago. Did you know my dad?
No,
Over
sir,
there?
I did not.
He would have been at the Pitchfork whenever you were, but you guys didn't neighbor or do anything.
No, sir, they never
We
let
never
us
know.
neighbor.
Yeah. Are there any other cowboys that were there as long as you were there the whole time at Matadors?
No, sir. Well, there was a couple that had been there. Management had been there. Been with the company. Maybe I ought to put it that way. Not there, but been with the company as long as until it sold. And then I was fortunate, of course, you know my house story and all, but
Yeah.
the people that bought it put me back on, and anyway, we had our own house, you know, but they let us move back out there.
What about? I do want to talk about that story here in a second. But, did you stay a campman for the 36 years, or did you try any?
Well, they they brought me in for more of the horse program, and they wanted to call me a wagon boss, but I'm not a title guy. I'm not a title guy. I probably shouldn't say this on the air, but yeah, I'm first ass eating is what I am. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Yeah.
No, I mean, really, that's what I am.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it. I coordinate about all that. That's what I do.
Yep. So. I bet the day workers and the crew respected that.
I think so. I wouldn't ask anybody to do anything I wouldn't try myself. You know.
Did you feel like you got to work with good day workers? Did y'all have pretty good pick of the qualified type of individual like we were talking about earlier?
Evidently. Yeah. You know, yeah. Oh, yeah, we had as good a crew as you could find.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like we had phenomenal guys. Do anything, willing to do anything. Give you shirt off their back if they needed to, you know, besides being top help. Super punchers.
There you go. A crew full of super punchers.
There you go.
Well, I don't know a lot about Matadors, but I mean, I've always assumed it was one of those ranches that held themselves to a standard that you would appreciate aligning yourself with, you know, as far as the values and the way the ranch was run.
Yes, sir. I do. I did. I just, there's a lot of things that they had so much, I don't know how to say this. They had so much upper management in Wichita was their base office.
Kansas or Falls?
Kansas.
Yes, sir.
And those guys had so many different ideas as compared to the people down here that were involved with ranches all their life, and they just, I don't know, like I say, they wanted to try something new all the time instead of easing into it.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of aggravating and hard to cope with, but I didn't want to lose my wife, so I had to keep me a job.
Yes, sir. How many kids do you have?
2.
Yes, sir.
And then I have an extended family.
Oh, yeah.
Kai and Whitney.
What was it like raising your kids on the ranch?
Oh, it's great. Yeah, I wouldn't have it nothing else. My boy, he liked to ride and all that. My daughter loved to ride. My wife loved to ride. So, and we were in paradise there, even though even though we was having to work. But
yeah, and then the ranch pays one man and gets 4.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I've always wondered how different ranches handle that, you know, with when a man can provide that much extra labor. I'm sure they took care of you. I mean, you stayed there 36 years, but
yes,
whenever
sir.
you show up with 3 extra hands.
They would pay, like my wife, when we were short-handed or something, well, they'd pay her a day wage, you know, my boy.
Mm-hmm.
Same way. My daughter, not so much, but she was kind of more sports and stuff. So.
You bet. Yeah, I'm sure there were some times too where maybe there wasn't extra help needed per se, and so they were there, and so that's just. But I could see how that's good that they took care of you on.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about being a camp man and being out on an island away from the world, and you know, as far away from, I guess, that information that we talked about, which can be a positive and a negative, but then to think about your kids growing up in that, and you know, that's the only world they know, and it's so neat. And I think that's maybe one of the more, you know, as young people, they want to be cowboys, and I think people with families respect that part of the cowboy lifestyle that they get to raise. You know, I think there's a lot of parents probably envious of what you had, being able to. I've got a kid coming. He'll be here tonight actually, and his dad just respects the cowboy lifestyle, but he wants his son to just work on a ranch, and my little place in Winnebago fits his description, and so he's sending his son, and he's going to work for 2 days, you know, digging post holes and tying up stays. And to that dad, it's the biggest favor I could ever do for him.
Yes, sir.
And for me, it's just, you know, it's 2 days worth of help, and I appreciate it, but I don't know. I think that the life we get to live is so interesting, but you two, especially as campmen out there, yeah, it's I'm sure your kids wouldn't trade it either. There's times were there times when they didn't appreciate it, and like your daughter in the moment, it's like, no, I want to go play sports, and then years later, she's like, good heavens, I'm so glad that I grew up like that.
Yeah. I think my boy, other than getting bucked off or something, well, he nearly would have led the life, but he went a different way. What you're doing with that boy, that's what this world needs. He needs to come and he needs to see the real deal. Yeah. And I think y'all, you asked me way earlier about the day workers coming up, and I got to thinking about that. So there's a lot of young men out there now that are, I'm talking 19, 20-year-olds that I've been seeing lately that y'all are teaching, and that I've noticed they're quick to listen and slow to talk, like we all talk about. They're listening, and those are going to be good day, good hands, whatever they go.
Yes, sir.
There's a generation still coming.
Yes, sir. None of that tall hat and big buckle stuff. Long hair.
I never could win none of that.
What about the long hair? Did you ever have long hair?
I did.
Did you?
I did, yeah. Not as long as Rod Smith's, but
Yeah.
I did in about 70, 69, 70. Yeah, I had pretty long hair. Maybe not as long as yours, Dale, but and it's got shorter.
Yeah. I remember, it's funny you say that about, young kids coming up. You're Idalou, Texas. Did you ever remember the ag teacher there, Danny Gunn?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
He had a
he got hit by the train.
Yeah,
yes,
his
sir.
daughter Tatum and I were around state officers around the same time, and the nicest guy. Danny Gunn was just the most amazing man, and my dad was an ag teacher too, and so I ran around those guys as kid, like since I was little going to ag teachers convention. Well, in Idalou they had 2 ag teachers, and the other ag teacher that taught with Danny was Fudd. Fudd Robertson is what they called him, Fudd. And same as Danny, just sweetheart of an older gentleman. I need to find out where he's at these days. But Danny passed maybe, man, I hate to say this, it might have been almost 20 years ago, but I was at his funeral and Fudd stood up, and I had always heard people in his age group, for the most part, throwing rocks at young people. And this was in 2006. Yep. So it was interesting to hear Fudd stand up and really kind of say the opposite. And he said, there's good, there's always, there'll be an occasional turd, and maybe in some groups there's more turds but there's good kids in each of these generations coming up. And I think about that so much. I was sitting in that big basketball stadium listening to, and I mean, that was almost 20 years ago, and I remember him talking at that funeral. And when I get the inclination to kind of throw rocks at young people, I always think about Fudd and his attitude, and that's what made him such a good ag teacher. Was because he gave kids a chance. That was his default. He's like, I'm going to give you a chance. If you aren't going to be good, that'll be your decision, but I'm going to give you a chance to be. And some people get, and I can tell, with you can see how some people might get jaded and bitter, but hearing you say that about the young Cowboys coming up reminded me of his attitude towards them, and I think you're right. I think that there are good kids mixed in here that can hopefully one day be campers, running a camp, and hopefully change the country.
Yes, sir.
It seems like we have changed the country, though. These last couple of days, it's been a good week.
Been a good couple weeks.
A good couple
Yeah.
weeks. I had a girl message me and said, only real cowboys vote for Kamala. And I said, well, I'm not saying that the opposite, but I know a few real cowboys that aren't, and they're pretty real cowboys. So I don't think you're right on the money. I'm not going to say that no cowboy. There's probably a cowboy out there that's good with a horse that probably voted for her, but I know a few myself that are pretty good that didn't. What was it like for y'all to work together? Tell me about y'all's friendship and how that got started. Tell me about Tim for you as a cowboy.
Well, I grew up in Colorado, and my dad knew Tim. My dad's side of the family was from Turkey. My mom's from Colorado, and we moved when I was junior in high school. Anyways, Dad knew him. They were always real good friends, or they were acquaintances, and I got to work for a guy that put me in line to go to help the Matador Ranch, Rod Smith. Anyways, I got to work around Tim them first couple of years, and man, it was just like I just felt like it. There's a lot of people that never get to meet their heroes, and I've got to meet every one of mine.
Yeah.
You know? And Tim Washington's one of them. And Rod Smith, my dad, and Craig Haythorne are some of my greatest, and Fro Walden.
And Dale Brisby.
And Dale Brisby. That's the sixth. I knew there was one more. But getting to work around Tim was like, it was just fun. Like, he was always the boss. He never claimed to be the boss.
Mm.
But like, just somebody to look up to. Like, we had a lot of fun, and he'd always make you feel special no matter what you did. You know, he never talked down to you. Always was right there to pick you up, or you know, it had a lot of fun. And getting to watch him ranch was a treat. It really was. Like, there's many a times I can remember play by play catching bulls or wild yearlings, or roping some bad stuff, and that guy's handy at it, very handy.
What's something you can think of that maybe like loading a bull off a fence, or the way you tie something down that you might have learned from him? I'm just curious for myself.
One instance I can remember, he had a S-bar horse. He was a Groya horse. Called him 8 Ball, I believe. And I was riding an outside horse because I was just day working, trying to make ends meet, and riding whatever I could to get the job done. And they had, that was back when Coke run some Akaushi bulls. And this thing he was a big boy. I bet he was 26 plus. I don't know. He was plenty big. And Tim rolled up on this rascal as fast as one can run downhill, and he was just going to rope a leg. Well, he shouldn't have roped so good. He roped 2 back legs, and he's tied to him. And I'm as fast as one can run, running down a pretty good steep ravine, and going down into a crossing. And that old Groya horse sat on his hind hocks, and they jerked him into a big cedar. And I was trying to get there, but I ain't even ever swung a rope off my horse. And he never got worried, never bothered him. And I finally got mine up there close enough. I got him on something to kind of line him out, or where we could stretch him out. But I'll always remember this look on his face as I'm loping past him, because my horse is running off and he's getting drugged. But that was pretty funny. He was just smiling up there where I'd have probably been jumping off, you know.
And you were tied off?
Yes,
oh, yeah.
Sir.
Was that so when you're growing up, everybody's tied off all the time. When did you really first start seeing people dallying?
I couldn't tell you the year, just kind of when team roping started evolving pretty heavy, you know. I mean, that's the first time I'd ever seen it. I couldn't tell you a year.
But through the '80s, '70s, '80s, early '90s, everybody's like at Matador, and I mean, you see 10 guys. Well, were there multiple guys dragging, or was that still just? Because I heard back in the day there'd be really more just a few guys drag, or did you guys rotate through?
I always like to rotate pretty well through.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody pretty well got a shot at it, but
And everybody tied off.
Just about everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some still dallied, but it depended on the pen.
Mm-hmm.
If it was, small enough pen you need to dally. But yeah, tying off was a big thing. Kai's way too humble about it because he and I loved when we had to go get a bull or something that couldn't get gathered. Well, I always wanted to go with Kai because I knew, he'd jump off and
be in the middle of
bulldog him if he had to,
Right.
and that's how I always felt. I mean, I might not could get there as fast as Kai, but he's been way too humble because I remember a black bull, and I think we were both on, were those 2-year-olds at Lucky Knob?
Yeah. I do, yes, sir.
Yeah, and this bull, he wasn't as big as that Akaushi, but I mean, he weighed a ton.
Yeah.
And so I told Kyle, we pulled, unloaded there, caked a little, so they'd kind of hang there. And we unloaded, cinched up. We might have loped a circle or two, but anyway, I said, we'll try to get a Sunday loop on him, get a hold of him here. Well, I look up and Kyle's gone. He's just right in his hiney and ropes this thing. He was going downhill, and he was on this wrong. He did dally, but I'm like, dude, I don't even know if I can get up there. So he's been way humble. But yeah, if you want somebody reliable, go with. That's who I'd go with.
Was he always as good with a rope as he is now?
Oh yeah,
and pretty much sharp like that since then.
He's he'll cut himself short, but no, I wished I could. I don't even know that I could coil his rope.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's usually neck and neck. Who's the better? Me and Kai. Like, it's just like whenever he and I are roping at the same time in the pen, everybody's like,
gets
that's
me
what I've heard. That's what I've
Donnie's heard that. He's only heard it from me, but
It always smokes me in the Brandon pen.
Oh, how far was your camp from his?
The first time I lived there at headquarters, so when he was at Russellville, it was
16 months.
16 months.
Oh, yeah.
16 months.
Were you at Russellville the whole?
I was 7 days short of 22 years at Russellville.
Dang. 22 years at the same camp. That is awesome.
Isn't that crazy? And then I moved to Lucky Knob in TP City, and it was 20 miles.
Probably.
Every bit up 20 miles from there to him.
And so is that the time frame where you said there's 4 campmen out there?
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Yep. Nice. Who were the other 2? Anybody I would know?
Let's see.
Gilbert and Mickey were there.
That's it. Gilbert, Mickey Bashirs, and Gilbert Guerrero.
I think I've met Gilbert.
I bet you have.
I don't know that I know.
Probably the tornado deal. Probably where you met him.
Did and then Wakefield, was he around there quite a bit? Didn't he spend a bunch of time?
Unfortunately.
That might be the only thing I hold against Kai is he brought him in.
Oh, you brought Wakefield in. Yeah. Where did you meet him?
At the Bell in New Mexico.
That's right.
Yes, sir. Well, I knew him before that, but yeah.
That's where you got to know him.
Yes, sir. Yeah, he came to work out there and then moved back. And, he stayed out there for a minute, and then I can't remember. If Tim they needed more day workers or what, but it was a fun crew. But it was wild.
It was about 10 years ago. It might be more than that because I think I was living down there. But there was a guy over here in Throckmorton, was running a lease place in East Texas, and I don't even remember how I knew him, but I met him up there. We all stayed in a hotel, and we met the next morning in the parking lot of this hotel to go out to this East Texas place, and Ray Bradley was there, and I want to say Coley Flowers. I can't really remember, but I know. But in the parking lot, it's 5 a.m, and I go to the back of this pickup, and tall redhead man standing there with the beer, and he said, "You must be Dale Brisby." And I said, "You must be Ryan Wakefield." We both knew each other before the day even got started. I said, you must be Ryan Wakefield. And I believe both of our reputations have lived up to each other's expectations.
I think so.
He definitely made it interesting for the whole crew during the works. He kept it alive and comical.
Yeah, I'm sure back then, before he, had Miles and all that, he was probably even, more so comical than he is now. One day I should have him on here. I told him that, but he just kind of shook his head.
Yeah.
You should. He's great help.
Yeah.
And he can keep the crew happy.
Yeah.
He'll jump in there in the middle of a situation too.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Who do you think's a better roper, Tim?
You.
Yeah. Great answer. I was going to say between Kai and Wakefield.
Probably Wakefield.
You got two bulls running across there. Got to put our money on one. That'd be tight. That's a tight race.
He's probably going to beat me because he's going to be talking crap to me and making me laugh.
And you might get in your head.
And I won't even touch him. Yeah.
Oh, shoot. So, fast forward. This crazy story. What happened with this tornado in Matador? Tell me about that.
Pretty wild. June 21st, 2023, about 8 o'clock at night. Anyway, my wife and I'm a pretty early riser and go to bed pretty early. And anyway, we had 2 of our grandkids, and we had just had Kai's kids the day before. And anyway, we phone went off that there was a cloud coming, and I'd seen them my younger years in the 70s. They were everywhere, we'd see them all the time, but wasn't much to me, but I wasn't as concerned as I need to be, I guess. But anyway, then we got another warning on our phone, and my wife hollered at me, and she got the kids. We had a 2-story house, and she got the kids out from upstairs, and our basement was outside. You had to go out to get into the basement. And I started that away and I couldn't open the door, and I noticed that we had a shade there that was twisting. It'd been counterclockwise, and I knew something was bad. And
what do you mean? A shade that
like a shade cloth,
just a
outside porch.
like
over a patio, and it had 4 corners tied, and it was twisting counterclockwise, and I couldn't open the door. I couldn't push the door open, and I hollered at her, and she had already got the kids in the bathtub and throwed some pillows on them, and she was in there with them. And then as soon as I got there, I slammed the door, and the house just exploded.
Whoa!
There was something just flying by me, and I could see bricks. Our house was bricks, and I could see bricks, and anyway, I could see daylight for a second, and then it's all over. The top floor and the wall had fell on me.
This is in the morning?
This was at night.
In the night.
Yes, sir. 8 in the evening. And the top floor and the wall had fell on me, and I couldn't move anything but my upper arm, and I barely breathed. It was heavy on me, and but I could see my wife. She was in a big pocket on a bunch of bricks, and I could hear the kids. I couldn't see them, but I could hear them. And
how much time has transpired at this point?
I'm going to say from the time that all happened, it couldn't have been over 15 seconds from the time I said we got to go to the bathroom to there was just explosion and then just quiet. God. I mean, that had to happen in 5-10 seconds. It's over. And anyway, well, long story short, the Lord was with us because the kids, the bathtub had turned over on them. They barely had any scratches.
It turned over?
Mm-hmm, on them. An old one, cast iron one. It turned over on them. So it had them protected. My wife had a nail
just
surgery.
one of those classic heavy, like real heavy, hard to move.
Well, yes, not the old eagle claw, but
you bet
it was a cast iron.
And then your wife had
and then my wife had a nail about 3 inches long, about 2 inches from her head, and she was just on a pile of bricks, and she had one little old bump on her arm. And anyway, they finally dug us out. They took me to the hospital, but God was with us because if we'd have got in our basement, she had a lot of stuff stored, and when they dug it out, cleaned it out, it was all gone, and that basement was completely full of bricks and water.
Really?
We'd have drowned or crushed, or got sucked out, I guess.
Wow.
But anyway, the poor people lost their lives. So we were blessed. Kai, he's got quite a story about it himself, trying to get to us.
Yeah.
They dug us out, and there was another storm coming. I guess another hailstorm came. I was kind of...
That night?
Yes, right after this. So they were trying to rush and get us dug out. And anyway, they took me in the ambulance. The rest of them, well, my wife went with us, but the grandkids my daughter took to the courthouse, and they went in that basement at the courthouse for the second storm. But
what a crazy 15 seconds.
Yeah. Wild.
What happened with you trying to get to him?
Well, we were living around in between Borger and Fritz at the time, and we didn't know that there was any kind of threat at all. But I remember looking out on the
Oh
porch.
yeah, you were at Dixon Creek at West Camp.
Yes, sir. I looked out, and the biggest thunderhead I've ever seen in my life. Big old cloud. It went past us. It looked like it just came straight up from Claude, straight past us, and it went past us. And it looked like it just got madder than heck, and just did
You saw the cloud?
I saw the cloud, yeah. Because I watched it, and there was lightning popping up in it. And it went as far north as it could, and then it just did a 180 and went down. Because it touched up and down to the Paladera, but where it did the most damage was in Matador. But I drove as fast as I could.
Yeah.
And dropped Whit and the kids off. And I got down there, and they had the roads blocked off because it already happened. But the cop, or police officer from Florida, wouldn't let me through, but I still had my old ranch keys from working at the ranch. And I was in my wife's really nice car. And they just got, I don't know how many inches of rain, but I did a little off-roading and got there. But I was more worried about them because I couldn't get a hold of anybody.
Right. So you didn't know?
No, not for a long time, no. And not till I actually got on the ranch, somebody finally said that they're all right and they're headed out.
Dang.
And anyways, the next concern was I was glad they were all right, but his horses, because I'd actually worked with him the day before, and like I said, or my kids, I'd pick my kids up from him about 12 hours before that happened, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, went to looking for his horses and found a couple of them. And they're in real bad shape, and they had to be euthanized. And couldn't find his favorite horse and his personal horse that I know, like, he's really sentimental and really special to him. And anyways, it got to be about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and we looked and could not find him. That cloud come from the north. It completely demolished their house. I mean, just leveled a 2-story house. And their barn to the south of it. The 2 horses that we'd found were to the south, but we couldn't find the other horses, Palomino horse. The next morning we got up real early and caught some horses from the ranch. And I know True Burson was there, Kelby Phillips, Trace Campbell, and my nephew, Cade. True went to helping pick up stuff at the house, and we went to trotting trying to find that horse. And it was mid-morning, I don't know, probably 10 or 11 o'clock, and we found that horse, but he was north of the house. Like, I think he'd had to cross 3 fences. So I know it was the grace of God, but had to have picked that horse up and put him over there. I mean, he was in bad shape, but thank God he was, fixable, and he rode him the other day at a ranch rodeo.
Dang.
That yellow horse he was on at that rodeo was that same horse.
So you're pretty convinced he took flight?
I don't know how else he would have got through it because he was in a tin barn, and them other 2 were.
He was with the others.
Yeah.
They were all together.
Had to have
How far away?
mile and a half.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was crippled, cut up, and
Yeah.
he had lacerations all over his hips. And
I mean, the tornado took the house.
Yeah.
No reason it couldn't pick up a horse.
The other
pick
thing
up a
was
house.
he had his personal pickup right in front of his house, and 18x6 heavy handmade trailer in front of it. Anyways, it was facing, I guess, been facing west. Well, that pickup after the tornado was facing east, and the trailer was nowhere to be found. And I guess y'all found the jack of it, maybe, huh? I mean,
Maybe.
months later, but never found that trailer.
No way.
No.
It's just in somebody's pasture somewhere.
Well, I think it just disintegrated it. That's all I know.
Ripped it apart.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
There was a box car that come from a mile out of town, and it would look like a basketball. It's just half of it. It was in our yard. And the other half, I don't even know where it was.
How big a tornado did it end up being? Did they say?
I believe they called it a F3. It's 165 miles an hour.
It was a couple miles an hour short of
There's
an F4 or something.
It was 1 mile per hour short of F4.
Wow. Wow. Gosh, dang. Yeah, tornadoes are. I don't mess with them, do I?
I won't either anymore.
Yeah. Did you whenever your phone went off? Did you wonder did you it cross your mind that it was that, or you were just like, oh, it's just another storm?
The first time, yeah, it's lightning, wind, and the direction it came from, we couldn't see. There's trees.
Who in the world would think to not get in the cellar? Was it a cellar or was it a
basement?
Sure enough, a basement.
Yeah, that's just there was no no top to it, right?
The top was the bottom floor of the house. The house was on top of the basement.
Man,
but you had to
But it was
access
completely flooded. I mean, it was full of water and the top of the roof.
That's wild though. Like you would never imagine. Like obviously anybody in their right mind would go to the basement.
Yep.
But it sounds like the timing of it, even if you had gotten the door open, you might not have been able to make it in there anyway.
That's correct. I totally believe that. And there was 2 other couples that we know real well that got in their basements that were like ours. It had the bottom floor was the roof of it, and I know it sucked the shoes off of one couple and their kid, and they were just hanging on to each other and anything they could. and then another couple will. They watched it go over them and said they had 1, 2 before there they were hanging on to. They were right in the corner of it when they found them. Does crazy things.
Yes, it does.
And the
That's
stuff
so
it
wild.
decided to take and didn't take was what was nuts. When I pulled up there, like I said, our kids had been there the night before, and Dina, Tim's wife, always buys the kids a little toy or something. And there's a little plastic truck that looks like that deal off of Cars, like Tomato or whatever, a little trailer that you have to personally hook up and unhook, like it's plastic.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it took that 18-foot trailer. It was gone, but that little plastic truck and trailer toy was sitting right in the yard. And like I couldn't help but just start bawling and thanking God for them being all right, but obviously our babies, because my kids are hard-headed and probably would have still been up there arguing to come down the stairs. And,
Right, yeah.
all a God thing. I know it was.
That's wild. That is wild. I knew it was bad. I never got to drive through Matador. By the time I did, it was kind of cleaned up.
Yes, sir.
But good heavens, that's a crazy story. And you had told me parts of it, but man. So that's when you went back out there?
Moved back to the ranch, yes, sir. The people that bought it, the headquarters part, I had went back to work for them and or continued to work for them, and they put us out there. They've been wonderful to us.
Are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They hadn't run me off yet.
I for some reason I thought you had retired from it, but
No, sir.
maybe it was just the fact that it sold to you've got new owners.
That's correct.
That was it. Nice.
Yeah, and they've been excellent to us.
It's neat to hear about and see that the horse program has come as far as it has. What year did they kick that off?
Oh, they'd always had a couple of mares, registered mares through the years. John Lincoln back in the 50s, I believe. Anyway, they'd always had a couple of mares that were registered, and I can't think, Dale, probably, I'm going to say around the 1998 or 9, they ramped it up with mares and let us fortunate to get to go show some. And then we won the Rodeo award. I give a lot of credit for that to Chris Wilson. He did the write-up and all, and he needs a lot of credit for that. But we ran the 50 still. It was there was originally, when it was first bought by the Scots, well, there was 5 of them, and they all throwed $10,000 apiece in to buy the land. So that's where the 50 come from.
Nice.
50,000. So they used it for their horse brand. I believe at first they used a 50M. So I don't know. I can't remember what the M was for. But anyway, so that's why we brand the 50 today. And the same brand as the cows, the Dragon V, or they called it a Flying V. It started at that time too. I believe they bought 8,000. They were buying land. Like I say, they built up to 1.5 million acres, and they bought cattle along, and they bought 8,000 head of. They called them Jingle Bob cattle. They were shorthorn bulls, and then they just called them Texas cattle that they bred, and they had both ears split. And anyway, those 8,000 came with that Dragon V on them, so that stuck with the ranch.
They just split the ear down the middle. That's how they earmarked them.
Both ears, yes, sir.
That's kind of unique.
Yeah.
Well, they said these cattle they bought out of New Mexico, I believe, and they said they were the remaining. That it was told that they were the remains of the John Chisholm herd. That's what they were told.
Interesting. Yeah, that's crazy.
I don't know enough about the history of that ranch. I wish I did, but it's very interesting. The house they put us in is, oh gosh, it was the Scots had it built, had a butler's pantry, and I guess those rocks are foot thick, 2 foot thick.
I mean, that thing it's all there.
How long total were you there?
2-3 years the first time. I was there 2 different times. Yes, sir.
Nice.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And now you're back in Guthrie?
Back in Guthrie.
Yep. We're at Dixon Creek, the 4-6s for, how long were you there? 2 years?
2.5, right at it. Yes,
yeah, and then
yes, sir.
Essentially am now down, still with the 4-6s, but at headquarters, HQ, King County. So,
yes, sir.
Y'all got, when I first met you, you came up, I think it was when you were at Dixon Creek.
Well, I think the first time you met him was when
you were
I was
about to
at,
take.
I was still at Matador. The ranch had gone
and
for sale.
But you came up.
I tagged along with him. He
to the wagon.
Yes, sir.
And you were essentially kind of job interviewing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But y'all had, who was with you? You had a boy with you.
My nephew.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
What's his name?
Cade Edwards.
How's he doing?
He's good. I think he's helping.
He's actually helping us start 2-year-olds right now.
Is he really?
Yes, sir.
Because that was a few years ago. He'd be pretty close to 18 now, wouldn't he? Or getting up there?
Actually, he turns 21 tomorrow. Tomorrow's his birthday. Yeah.
Golly, he's older than I thought.
Yeah.
He wasn't a boy then. He was close to 18 back then, I guess. Or, close to 16.
Yeah.
16. Dang. Cool.
Oh, we about died in that
yeah, there was a hailstorm that week.
Yeah, rain.
Were you with us in that hailstorm?
I remember True. Yes.
And then True ran.
I remember.
Oh man, we were in that that mineral barn. Golly. That was a lot of hail. I'd have hate to have been just in our teepees if that had been 100 years prior and we only had our teepees. That'd have been miserable.
Yeah, I was thankful for the metal barn.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Golly, that was funny. Huh. Well, I sure appreciate you coming on. That's a cool story.
Yeah.
And I knew it would be. But there's a lot of people out there that, I don't know, just so thirsty for more, Tim Washingtons of the world, and just, I don't know.
They'll get over it after this.
Yeah. That's what I tell people about interns that come to work for me. Like, don't get too excited. You will be underwhelmed. I am underwhelmed, sir. No, that, I don't know. I think that the cowboy way of life, and this last week has been fun because, or I guess encouraging, because I feel like in some places in our country, there's little pockets where people have gotten a little out of hand and their thought process is just a little bit out of hand. And if you want to be different, that's fine. As one of my pastor friends said, you don't have to hate the person in order to disagree with the ideology. And there's a lot of new ideology out there that I completely disagree with. And I think most of the country does. And I don't know, with this last week coming up, I feel hopeful that, everybody came out of the woodwork and said, hey guys, y'all are a little out of hand. And some of these ideologies are a little bit extreme for us. And the only reason I bring that up is because it just makes me appreciate, the kind of men that I've been blessed to grow up around, like yourself, and the things that y'all stood for, and I don't know, makes me miss my dad, that's for sure. But
I'd like to say this, that tornado, it made me realize I'd gave up on the world, as you're similar to what you're talking about. Just I was like, my gosh, I'm glad I live where I live, and I'd gave up. But now that tornado, to see thousands of people come help people from way off, there's hope.
yes, sir.
Yourself, so the donations were just amazing.
Yes, sir.
You can't, and there's no way for me to thank everybody, but the majority of that came from people like yourself in the cowboy world. That's where it come from.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate the rest. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But that's where the majority came from. So it gave me hope.
It's I'm sure it's easy for Kai to cut through the ranch in order to get around a detour, a blocked off road, to get to you, because he knows that you would do the same for him,
That's right.
And it's there's people out there that God calls us to love everyone. And then there's people out there that are a lot easier to love. Some people that wind up being your heroes, where it's just a no-brainer. We got to help this man,
Yes, sir.
And
no, just like you said, working for people that I've been fortunate to work with, like that you wouldn't mind jumping on that grenade for, whatever, it is a brotherhood, not just brother in Christ, but like we get to work together, we do the same thing, we love what we do. So it's a no-brainer that you wouldn't dive on that grenade for them,
right,
or do anything in your power to save that person if they were in a bind, just like they would do the same.
You're just like Tim would for any of us.
Yes, sir.
It's crazy to think, Tim, I imagine in your years of ranching, most days are pretty smooth, but you've probably had some close calls ranching, meaning like health wise, like
Yes,
they're
sir.
like just the 2,600 pound bull for the normal man, like that would be a life changing event.
Right.
And as the cowboy that you are, you probably see a couple of those a year. But it's interesting that the tornado was just on another level, and that one hit you on another level.
Yes, sir.
Is what it sounds like.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that I imagine it probably changed the way you might even talk to God too.
Definitely.
I don't see how it couldn't.
Definitely. I'll always still tell people that I understand why he kept my wife and those kids safe, and I think he pinned me down to make me realize that you better change some stuff.
Really?
So,
dang.
Anyway.
And it's funny to think that, I mean, you're a cowboy just going to work. You're talking about just maybe mentally and how you are viewing things. It's not like you're out partying, and you don't need to change any of that. You're walking the straight and narrow already. But I guess what you're referring to is more just your attitude or the way you.
Just all the above.
Man, that's crazy. That is so crazy.
This way of life's the way to go, though.
Yes, sir.
And I guess the old guys like me, it's important to me that y'all are doing stuff to carry it on and to see those kids coming. I don't want to ever die.
Yes, sir.
I guess I don't even know how to frame this question, but we get so caught up in the rat race of money in life, paying bills, and as much as we try not to make money essentially an idol, like it is necessary to pay bills, to keep the lights on, what have you. With this being a lifestyle where you don't make a lot of that money, what did you? I mean, has it always been an easy conversation? Like, even though I'm not going to make as much money, I know this is the life that have you ever had to convince yourself, or has it always been?
It's a way of life I love. I mean, I've made a lifetime of it where I'm at. No, I've never had to convince myself.
Yeah.
I guess those pipelines and stuff like that now, I had a little different thought, but caring for the creation, that's great. I love it. Riding a good horse.
Yeah.
Used to not mind riding the bad ones, but I'm pretty well over that.
You paid your dues.
Well, I don't know that I have, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we got the boys, and I don't mind getting on one that I'm pretty sure is going to be gentle, but I fall off easier than I used to.
Yeah.
But no, I've never had a second thought. Yeah, I've done lots of things, don't get me wrong, before I went today. Well, in my day when you was making $40 a day, well, if there was a day that you didn't have a cowboy job, I'd get on a tractor if I had to, whatever I could make that $40. So, but this was my passion.
Right. That sounds like it was more so that you could continue to ride the horse.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When did you ever get to interact with the 4.6s back then?
No, sir, not way back in the day. No, sir. No, we like I say, they never let us neighbor. Maybe the occasional, like Tongue River, I'd get to go over and help them a day just because we had something on them, or but they never neighbored. We always used day work, so no, I didn't get to. Always wanted to, but
yeah. But when I saw you there, even at Guthrie, you'd probably been there since then, over there.
Yes, probably, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because all them guys knew who you were. But
Yeah.
sounds like maybe because they went over to Matador.
They probably
Yeah.
saw it in the post office or something.
Yeah. Well, we can probably all sit here for hours. Y'all's wives might be ready to load up, but no, I like hearing the stories, and like I say, talking about how it once was and how it needs to be now.
Yeah. Matador's probably was always just a little. Well, let me rephrase that. So Cokes bought it in '53. So I think from that time's when it really changed for the Matadors, because they were owned by a corporate world. So I think that's really the wagons and taking a wagon out and building fence and all that, pretty well quit.
Yeah.
And where some of the other outfits, I'm sure the Sixes and Pitchforks and some of them, they continued on till whatever time.
Yeah, Boots talked about like a big change being obviously pickups, but I guess in the late 60s they had been there for a little bit. By then, I don't remember what year he talked about them starting to. Tom too. We talked to Tom about it, and he was.
I saw both of those.
Yep. Yeah. You've known both of those guys for a long time.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes, sir. I got to work alongside Boots down here some at Guthrie. So a little bit.
Yep.
A great guy. He has to tell me about breaking them Matador horses though every time.
Did he ever go to Matador? Did
Did
he spend some time over there?
Yes, sir.
I can't remember.
Yeah, he I guess he went. Did him and his brother go over there and start broncs for the Matadors, like 4 and 5 year old broncs?
Yes, sir.
I can't remember what year.
He rode the train to Russellville at
Mm-hmm.
one point with a bunch of broncs, and I do know he spent some time there. He's got an old set of spurs. It's got the 50 and the V on them.
Really?
I don't know if they're buyers or what, but they're neat set of hooks.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got to do a podcast with Wes too.
You did?
Yeah.
Wes, good guy.
Yeah. That was super neat.
Yes, sir. Cowboys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was funny. He said the funniest line out of that deal, he was talking about, he jumped in with a guy and they went up to, do you remember where they were? Was it in
Elko, I think, Nevada?
Yeah, they were in Elko, Nevada, and went into a saloon or a store or something. They're like, y'all looking for some buckaroo jobs? And he said, no, we're looking for cowboy jobs. He talked about not lasting too long up there. He came back to Texas. Yeah. No, we're looking for cowboy jobs.
That's funny.
But anyway.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank y'all for coming. I've been wanting to do it for a while, and I'm glad our schedule's finally lined up. So
Maybe you can edit it where you can use something.
yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I'm telling you, our people will love this conversation. It's good to talk to cowboys. So
Well, I don't know that I've ever been one of them, but I sure like trying.
you're almost there. if you're not there, you're
making progress.
We're making progress. All right. Thank y'all for listening. I'm Dale Brisby, and we do wrap up with life advice. If you do you have like a one-liner or anything you've ever had to go back to? The tornado story is there's a lot of life advice in there. But do you got any smooth one-liners you give to people?
Had an old man tell me one time that working cattle and all said, if you'll to take the time it takes, it'll take less time.
That's exactly what I was after. Slow down. We're in a hurry.
Yep.
On to the next one, y'all. Pow, pow.